The wait is over. It is the very first guest in TSOW history, and we are kicking things off with a bang. I am now pleased to be joined by Travis Rooke-Ley, the Director of Content of the Ducks Rising NIL Group. There is a lot of great things to talk about with what is happening over at Ducks Rising. And of course, we're going to get into some Oregon Ducks ball talk a little bit later on in this discussion as well. Now, when I kind of look at Ducks Rising and I know what you guys are certainly doing over there, you've got a unique approach, certainly, to NIL in the current NIL space right now. And it's all about the fans. Like, there's a lot of sites out there, the 24/7 affiliates, the Rivals affiliates, the On3s affiliates. You guys kind of take a similar media type of approach, but subscribers that are, paying to see your content are also helping the football team retain players, continue to build a championship roster. How do you think you guys are being unique and different in the NIL space right now?
For sure. And just, thanks from all of us for having us on and
Yep.
just appreciate the platform. I think the nice thing about getting in on this NIL world early is we have the optionality and flexibility to kind of combine two worlds like you talked about. So, a rabid fan base like Oregon that fans just want to consume content and read about recruits 4 years down the line and know about the depth chart 8 months out. It's the perfect avenue for us to, like you said, combine a intel, media, team notes, connection to coaches, connection to players kind of environment, while also, like you said, giving fans the ability to contribute directly towards, as we call it, the acquisition and retention of talent. So, rather than having your dollars go out multimedia corporations, places like that, Ducks Rising is a place to get the best news, the latest news directly from coaches, staff, players, while also 97% of our dollars go back to the players themselves. So the statistic we like to cite is Coach Lanning is the only coach in the last 4 years that has not lost a starter to the portal, and you can help play a role in that. So I think it's a pretty unique opportunity for Duck fans.
Yeah, fans have now maybe more of a role than they ever had over these last couple of years to really influence the direction of the team. And when a lot of people talk about NIL, they talk about retainment, kind of what you were just talking about right there. Now, you guys got a lot of great new stuff kind of coming on down the pike. Right now, we're excited for spring football maybe starting up here in just a few weeks. There's a lot of excitement building for the 2025 Oregon Ducks on the field, and there's a lot of excitement building for you guys over there at Ducks Rising. You just launched a redesigned website on Saturday that certainly looks great, and a lot of new options and new features for subscribers over there, exclusive interviews. Kind of touch on some of the new exciting things that you have for your members over at Ducks Rising.
Yeah, I mean, never an off season for Duck fans for sure, but we did want to capitalize a little bit on the dead time per se before spring fires up. So yeah, Saturday we launched a whole new site. Check us out, ducksrising.com. New website, which we really think is kind of clean and new and innovative and speaks to that sense of Oregon that we've always been known nationally for. And then within that, we've been able to roll out this new tier system that we feel just offers fans really unique insider perspective. So we have a first tier that kind of gives you access to our community, our chat, kind of more of a message board feel. But then at that second tier, we're being able to offer fans access to Q&As with players, staff. One thing we did previously was that we plan to offer again was a live Q&A with Marshall Maucho, who's the Oregon CEO and chief of staff. And just for fans to be able to have a look kind of on the inside to what goes into the day-to-day of this operation, as you're seeing coaches across the country getting hired as college GMs nowadays, the personnel staffs and the football staffs associated with these schools is just crazy now. And so I think it's been cool for Duck fans to have kind of a unique look into that. And as far as we're concerned, we're the only ones out there that can show that right now. And what's nice is the staff itself has a reason to kind of let us in the door, because as we talked about earlier, we're supporting them and in turn they're supporting us.
Boy, no better place to find inside access and support your team at the same time. That's a 2-for-1 deal if I ever saw one, certainly over there. So you guys kind of mentioned your Q&As and your exclusive interviews that you've had over at the site. Who have been some of your favorite Duck personnel, whether it's been coaches, whether it's been players, whether it's been, some of this administration over there? Who have been some of your favorite guys to talk to in some of these exclusive interviews?
Yeah, I mean, definitely twofold. I think that in season, we've got a players lounge channel that some of the players pop in and out of. So last year we had a couple of our athletes, Justice Lowe, Connor Soleil, Terrence Ferguson, like popped into our players lounge channel before the Penn State game and just like talked through game prep and what they were fired up for going into that game. So that's just one of those peaks that's super cool to get a glimpse into what goes into the day to day. They talked about, the UW helmet getting smashed at halftime of that game and how that came about. So it's just like those little tidbits that are fun. And then I think at the same time, I mentioned it earlier, like talking to the player personnel guys and learning about what goes into scouting, portal, all these kind of words we hear talked about a lot, but like how does the sausage actually get made on a day to day, and all that goes into that was a super cool look for us.
Now, being in the NIL space, I'm sure you've got an eye on things happening this summer. The House versus NCAA settlement is expected to maybe change the structure of player compensation. They've talked about rev sharing and all of that, and what NIL may or may not look like. I think down the road is a question that a lot of people have as we approach the summer, as we approach the new 2025 season. How do you envision NIL looking for Ducks Rising in the future, considering some of the changes that might happen for the summer and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, an ever-changing world, I feel like direction is coming out every day that sometimes is contradictory with each other and state law and all that stuff. What I do know is that no matter what happens with House, us being able to, as a collective, being able to supplement and be there for athletes in the program in general is not going to go away. I think you've heard a lot of people in the national media, and I tend to agree with this, say that House settlement is going to kind of spread things across and make things a little more equal across athletic department to department. But I think that's where a school like Oregon, with a highly organized, dialed collective, can supplement and continue to kind of give us an edge in that space. And you've seen, when you give Dan Lanning and Marshall Malchow and the rest of them any bit of an edge, they're going to take advantage. You can see the rosters the last couple of years certainly speak to that.
And they have certainly taken advantage of it with some great rosters, as you mentioned. All right, let's get into some football talk about said roster, certainly here right now. We're just coming off of this NIL talk and what you guys are doing over there at Ducks Rising in the first part. And this is kind of the bridge that I want to create here to now that we're talking about the upcoming spring. We're coming about the upcoming season. A lot of narrative goes around about money and Oregon, certainly right now. But a lot of time there's transfers. A lot of times there's recruits where Oregon isn't the highest money offer on the table. Why do you think Eugene, Oregon has been such an attractive destination for some of these, they've had top 5 recruiting classes and then some of these great transfer classes as well?
For sure. I mean, the irony of the USCs and Washingtons of the world calling old Eugene, Oregon, the rich one, is always, the irony is never lost on me. But yeah, I mean, I think that for someone who's been lucky enough like me to spend a little bit of time around the HDC and that operation, the attention to detail within the staff of like building that culture and environment is the first thing you feel day one. The way that Dan from the top down, like, engages with staff, brings people in, cultivates that like family environment, I think is the biggest key by far. I think you see that with anytime you're a school, in Eugene, you need kids. You can't recruit just Oregon. You can't recruit just the West Coast, even so nowadays. And so if kids are going to send, or, families are going to send their kids 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 miles away, they need to feel comfortable in that stuff that they're going to be taken care of. And I think that the relationships and just like the trust factor that Lanning all the way down to his staff, it's a team and community effort. You hear these recruits, like a lot of times they'll be recruited by just a single guy at another school. At Oregon, it's 4, 5, 6 coaches who are building relationships. And I think that's not only led to like an amazing amount of staff retention here over the last 3 years, because coaches like being here and working for them, but player-wise as well.
I like what you said there with relationships. You know, I'm not sure I'm or you are breaking any news by saying Dan Lanning is one of the best in terms of developing relationships. You've mentioned with families, with recruits, with the number of coaches that are going out on these visits. And I think that's certainly a big reason why recruits and transfers are certainly flocking in to Eugene, Oregon right now. You kind of brought up maybe some of the narratives for the rivals down in LA and, of course, the rivals up north in Seattle right now. Let's talk maybe about there's a little bit of momentum, some might say, for USC. We know the flip that just took place with Jonas Williams, a four-star quarterback, but I think you and I know the reason why that took place. But obviously there's a gap between Oregon and the rest of the West Coast, maybe USC. They think they're maybe closing that gap a little bit. In your eyes, just how big of a gap do you feel there is between the Ducks and those three other West Coast Big Ten schools?
I mean, I think it's naive of any Oregon fan to think that USC was never going to be back in some respect.
Right.
And you know, we welcome those battles as Oregon fans. I don't think I ever expected a day where we were going to be able to cherry pick Los Angeles like we have the last, 5 years, it seemed like. So I do think with USC's like personnel hires over the offseason and some of their defensive hires last year, I don't, I'm not above saying that I think that they're making some progress. But when find me the recruit that Dan's going to go up against Lincoln for, that Dan's going to lose out on. And to me, there's not going to be many. So as long as Dan's driving the train when it comes to USC, I feel pretty confident there in that head coaching mismatch. As far as Washington goes, I don't, they're just not building at the level, especially on the offensive and defensive line that we are right now.
Yep.
And until they do, I'm just not inclined to be that worried about them. I mean, the last two classes, their best commits, we've been able to flip anytime we wanted to. So until they start recruiting at the level that Coach Pete had them at, I think things should be settled.
You look at the rest of those teams, those three teams that we mentioned. Washington was 6-6, UCLA 5-7, and USC 6-6, and we all know the Ducks 12-0 certainly last season. When I look to the offense for this season in 2025, I want to take a look back maybe first at the 2024 offense as compared to that 2023. We know the numbers that certainly Bo Nix and company put up in 2023. A little bit of a dip down in 2024. I think we knew what we were getting at the quarterback position with Dylan Gabriel, but I think there's a lot of people, myself included, very excited about the arm talent, very excited about the just overall talent that is Dante Moore, and I think he's a big key to that puzzle to be able to get Oregon to maybe put up the production like they did in 2023 over there with Bo Nix. Do you see the offense maybe returning more to its 2023 form with Dante at the controls here next season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if we're looking just purely in terms of parallels, I think you'll probably see a little more to Bo than you would have with Dylan. I think that, but even the last 2 years, I mean, with Nix and Gabriel were both at times, I think, a little gun shy to push the ball down the field. Mm-hmm. I think that they also, given their experience, were more than happy to just like take a 5-yard check down, move the chains every time. And I think that that's smart quarterbacking in a lot of senses. So I know Duck fans love to hate on Will Stein as much as they can, on the message boards because he throws too many wide receiver screens. I mean, by every offensive metric, we've been in the top 5 the last 2 years. I assume we'll be close to that again. But like you said, just the difference. I mean, Dante Moore's arm talent is something that the people I trust are not sure it's ever really been seen at Oregon in terms of just straight arm ability. So I think you'll see it's naive to not expect a little more variability. I mean, the way that Nix and Gabriel, took care of the ball, played into that. But I think in terms of like explosiveness with Evan Stewart, with DeCorian Moore, some of these guys coming in, I think that's the big change you'll see is just a little more of a push down the field.
And that's what I'm really excited about. We know the short passing game. We know getting rid of the football quickly has been a big MO of Will Stein and this offense. And hey, it certainly worked out really well, as you mentioned, these past 2 years. But man, you can't help but get excited about taking what you have And you got a pretty good package offer right now, and then adding something on top of it with the talent, especially with that speed on the outside with Evan and DeCorian that you talked about as well. Flipping over to the defensive side of the football right now, I called the line change in the secondary. 5 guys out and 5 new guys are going to come in. Do you believe that this Ducks secondary will be better? You get someone like Dylan Thieneman, a 2-time All-Big Ten performer coming over from Purdue. A lot of young talent, a lot of stars behind these names. I think there's a lot to be excited about, but what's kind of your view of the secondary? They've been taking incremental steps maybe up the ladder. Where do you see them kind of taking steps up maybe this year?
Yeah. I mean, I think, and specifically with Thieneman, we've had multiple conversations with staff who have said they think he might be the best player on the roster right now. Yeah. I think he is an absolute stud and is going to probably end up just being a 1-year guy because of it. Right. Beyond that, I think the big difference you'll see is like higher upside, and by the end of the year, probably a better group than we've seen the last 2 years. But I think there might be a little growing pains with it that comes with the inexperience. I think that the length, range, speed is what you're getting out of this group. And that's where we've lacked in our biggest moments the last couple of years. I think we've had really disciplined, veteran, high floor defenders in the second level the last couple of years. But as you saw against Washington 2023 championship game, and Ohio State this year, it came back to bite us a little bit. So I think the big difference this year is like we've got guys like 6'2", 6'3", big safeties that can run. I'm super excited about Kingston Lopa at safety. He'd be my projection today to start alongside Thieneman. And then at corner, we just got like a litany of 6 foot to 6'2", 4, 5-star guys. And specifically, I think Ife Odebegwu is going to be one that's going to be heard from a lot. I would bet he starts if I had to guess right now.
Yeah, they bring in Theron Johnson, who comes in from Northwestern. He was an All-Big Ten performer as well. And a lot of people, I've been hearing that smoke about Iffy as well. So that's certainly, and there's a lot of other names. We know Jaleel Florence is out there. There's just, as you mentioned, the list goes on and on and on, certainly at corner. I'm really excited about those spring battles in the secondary. Peyton Woodyard is another name to maybe keep an eye on at safety. So there's going to be a lot of these battles. Competition certainly makes everybody kind of step up to that next level as well. Defensive line. There's been some folks online that say, hey, even though you're losing 3 starters on this group, maybe it's the deepest group. Maybe it's one of the better groups in terms of position rooms on this team. Losing 3 starters, you might think, well, there might be a little bit of regression there, but Mateo, of course, is coming back. He was one of the top sack guys in the Big Ten last year. Amari Washington, he was certainly in that rotation after Jamari Caldwell and after Derek Harmon, so he's certainly going to be able to step up, I think, and get to that next level. But some people think that this could be a really big room. For me, it seems to hinge maybe on Bear Alexander and what he can do. What are kind of your thoughts on this defensive line room when you combine it with the edge rushers? Because I think there could be a lot of things to be excited about if guys can certainly live up to some of that potential.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super natural for people who aren't plugged into the Oregon scene to see, Caldwell, Birch, Harmon show out at the combine this week and say, oh, there's going to be a big dip. I think that's, a narrative, albeit a lazy one, if you really look into it, as you mentioned. I think that anytime you bring back a couple bookends in Tuioti and Mateo, you're set at edge, and we've got a bunch of young puppies there who have been, waiting in the wings to come play behind them. Amari Washington, I mean, I think even as of last year, he probably starts for 2/3 of Big Ten teams, 3/4 of Big Ten teams, probably everyone except us, Ohio State and Michigan. I think he's as disruptive of a nose tackle as we've had in a while. I mean, the amount of times he was in the backfield last year was crazy. And then, as you say, I mean, the nice thing about Bear is you bring Bear in all the talent in the world, but the pressure's on him, not us. I mean, Tioni Gray, Aiden Breland, Jericho Johnson. I mean, the list goes on and on and on of these guys we've had waiting in the wings, ready to play. Terrence Green, another one. So if Bear beats him out, awesome. That means Bear is really freaking good and is finally playing to his potential. If he's not, these guys are going to pop. So, yeah, I mean, you're never going to lose a first-round draft pick and a couple other NFL guys and immediately say you're going to upgrade. But I think from all conversations with the staff, they feel good about where we are.
Bear Alexander, you look up low risk, high reward in the dictionary, and I think that's the type of situation that you get with Bear because, like you mentioned, if it doesn't work, I think he's got 2 years of eligibility left. If it doesn't work out, some of these younger guys where, Tony Tuioti, the defensive line coach, of course, and the staff, they did a really good job recruiting over these last couple of years, then those are guys that can certainly step up into those types of situations as well. All right. You've been a season ticket holder for a long time up there, graduate of South Eugene High School in Eugene, local kid, certainly. What game at Autzen Stadium on the schedule this year has you most excited? The Beavs coming to town in late September. Of course, they're going to go on the road to Penn State, but Indiana's coming to Autzen. You got USC at the end of the year. Which one of these games really gets you excited to be able to shout about, certainly, this season?
I mean, it's got to be USC for us. For those of us, you mentioned South Eugene, they grew up right at that age. I mean, my formative high school, becoming a huge fan years were just getting trampled by USC at Autzen. So I specifically, one of my earliest memories was that 2005 game where we went up 10-0 on them and then were completely blown out of the water. So, for us that just grew up hating USC and always wanting that level of talent, playing for titles and different things, and just that hatred was built early. So to have the tables flipped a little bit, like we talked about earlier, and anytime they come into our house, no matter the year either of us are having, there's a lot of vitriol in that stadium for sure.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. Towards the end of the season, how will USC be? You got to think Oregon might be in a position to possibly clinch a playoff spot at that time. So that's certainly going to be a lot of fun. If you haven't yet, consider going over there and subscribing and being a part of the community that is Ducks Rising. Travis does a great job at all of the content that they put together, from exclusive interviews to some of these other benefits from being a member of Ducks Rising. Travis, great to talk to you today. And hey, this August, when I'm coming to Oregon, we might have to meet up and sit down and have a beer or something, or meet on top of a mountain or something. But once again, appreciate you for coming on here today.
Not a problem. Appreciate you having us. And fans, just check us out. Give us a chance. You won't regret it.